Pleasant morning, everyone. Before anything else, let us pray first and ask the guidance of our Almighty Father. Before we start with our lesson today, let me first introduce myself, as I think is a must, since it is the beginning of the school year and you are just in your grade 7. I am Jami G Fortunado and I will be your subject teacher in your science subject. For your attendance for today, please stand up or raise your hand if your name is called for me to be familiar with your faces. Citics fine hot med. These words don't make any sense, right? That is because these are actually jumbled letters. What I want you to do is to arrange these letters and try to figure out the correct words which can be formed out of these letters. Please write your answers on the pieces of paper I have given you and don't forget to write your name as well. You have 2 minutes to do this activity. You have consumed your 2 minutes, so please stop writing now and kindly pass the papers forward. So did you guys figure out the correct words? Nice! So what did you write in your paper? Can anyone tell me what the correct answer is? Scientific method. That is correct. Can you think of other words now which you think relates to the word scientific method? Hypothesis, question, observation, problems. That is correct. All these words are related to scientific method, and we will learn later on why these words are said to be related to scientific method. Science is a way of thinking, a way of gathering information about the world that is both accurate and reliable. Do you agree that science is all about seeking knowledge, seeking answers, seeking new ideas, and even seeking new questions? Science is all about inquiry, to improve our understanding about the world and how they work. In this inquiry about the world, we have something that serves as a roadmap for us to be able to arrive at our destination or arrive at our conclusions. And do you have any idea what that is? The scientific method. That is correct. The scientific method follows a step-by-step procedure which are logical and sequential, and this method is often used in scientific investigations which seek to find out the truth about certain phenomenon. Can you still recall the different steps of the scientific method? I am pleased to know that you still have the recollection of the different steps. So the scientific method has a total of 6 steps. These are making observations, asking questions, forming the hypothesis, experimentation, analyzing and interpreting data, and the last one is making conclusions. Do you think these steps can be interchanged? Like, instead of making experimentation first, I will jump to making conclusions. If not, why do you think so? Of course, these steps cannot be interchanged. These steps must be followed sequentially, otherwise you will not arrive at the correct conclusion or answer. Now let us discuss each of the steps. The first one is making observations. The first thing to do to begin the scientific experiment is to observe activities, object, things, or phenomenon which can be subject to scientific inquiry. You can have your observations on day-to-day activities, like you observe that ice melts fast in water, or that the plant inside your room withered fast, or that you feel even hotter if you wear a black shirt on summer. Once you have your observation, your curiosity will lead you to the next step, and that is asking questions. You will begin to wonder, does the ice melt faster in any other liquids? Once you have a question, the next step of the scientific method is to make a tentative answer to your question. That is the hypothesis or an educational guess. You happen to be fond of drinking juice, so for your hypothesis, you stated that the ice melts faster in juice than in water at room temperature. This is just your prediction, and in order to determine whether your prediction is right or wrong, what will you do next? Yes, you will now conduct an experiment. But before we proceed with our experiment, it is important to know what are variables. We have the so-called independent and dependent variables. When we say independent variable, it is the variable that we manipulate or control, while the dependent variable, on the other hand, is the variable that changes. It is the effect that arises from our manipulation of the independent variable. Between the glass of water, the glass of juice, and the ice from our example, which do you think are the dependent variable and the independent variable? Okay, so the glass of water and the glass of ice are our independent variables, while our dependent variable is the rate of melting of ice. Now, in order to carry out our experiment, what will we need? Of course, we need our variables: a glass of water, a glass of juice, ice cubes, and a stopwatch to record the changes. But for this experiment, it is necessary to take note that the glass of water and the glass of juice must be of the same temperature. So let's say that we will perform the experiment at room temperature. Now, what will you do next? Yes, you need to record everything that is happening in the experiment. The changes, including the time that the changes occur, and if necessary, you can also add illustrations and drawings. After recording and analyzing data, we are now down to the last step, which is, yes, you will now make conclusions based on the interpretation of your data. You will now determine whether your hypothesis is correct or not. For the experiment in the example, do you think the hypothesis is correct? Does ice really melts fast in juice than in water at room temperature? You have lots of ideas, which is great, but I will leave that question unanswered for you. You will have it as an assignment later on. Now we will have an activity, but before that, let me first show you a video. This is called the Scientific Method Song. I want you to listen to the song for you to easily remember the different steps of the scientific method.
Scientific method, 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 scientific method. First you make an observation of the world around. Take notes and record all the things that you found. Then you ask a simple question, something that you want to learn. Then you form a hypothesis to explain what you observe. Then you make a prediction about how it's gonna go. Do a test with a control and a variable. Then you analyze the data and draw a conclusion. Do the scientific method to avoid all confusion. Make an observation, ask a question, form a hypothesis and make a prediction. Do a test or experimentation, analyze data and draw a conclusion. Make an observation, ask a question, form a hypothesis and make a prediction. Do a test or experimentation, analyze data and draw a conclusion. Scientific method, 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 scientific
a picture of a wilted plant. Let us say this plant is in your room for 4 days and you noticed that it started to wither slowly. Your room is not well ventilated. Do you think this observation can be a subject of a scientific experiment? I want you to ponder on the question, why did the plant wither? Think about it and write possible causes in your notebooks. This time, I will call someone to share with us their answers as to why the plant wilted. Very good. I appreciate your ideas. Now, can anyone make a hypothesis out of this situation? Nice! You really have learned how to make an observation and hypothesis. What you have just performed now are the first 3 steps of the scientific method. You make an observation, you ask a question, and you make a hypothesis. These 3 will now be followed by your experiment, your analyzation of data, and drawing of conclusions. Now for your application, this will be done by a group of 5. You will perform the experiment to test the hypothesis from earlier. Of course, the results and the conclusion will be presented 4 days from now since you will have to wait 4 days to record the changes. But make sure to write down all the observations, okay? For your application, I want you to write in a 1/4 sheet of paper the steps of the scientific method and explain each one briefly using your own words. For your assignment, do you still remember the glass of water, the glass of juice, and the ice that we mentioned earlier? We ended with making our hypothesis, so I want you to perform the experiment to test whether the hypothesis that the ice melts faster in juice than in water is true or not. This will be done by pair to be submitted tomorrow, and you can choose your own partner now. That concludes our lesson for today. Thank you everyone for listening and see you next meeting.